Okay, Jules. So, good essay to start. Um, Good solid introduction there, specifying what you're going to be looking at within the essay. A couple of small issues, 1920s, you need an S on the end. Jordan Baker's, you need an apostrophe in there. Do watch Spag because it will impact on your marks. You will get marks awarded for quality of written communication and your technical accuracy when it comes to your essays. You do specify that you're looking just at Jordan Baker rather than Daisy, which is good, and make sure that the reader knows exactly which character you're talking about, given that the essay title is an either-or option. You talk about in here applying the patriarchal conventions to the female character of Jordan Baker. Patriarchy itself is based around the domination of the male gender. And you say that Fitzgerald's characters do this, especially the men. Tom Buchanan and Jay Gatsby both have servants and butlers. This also signifies their wealth and furthermore their independence too. Yet on the topic of independence, when reading the novel, Jordan Baker herself is portrayed as an independent. Good. Not quite sure what the relevance of servants and butlers is to the patriarchal system. Are you saying that they are men and they are the ones that are in control of the servants and butlers, in which case you could link it into the patriarchal system, in that the women don't have access to them, but that's not very clear within that bit, so perhaps make that a little bit more clear. Following on from Baker's independence, which I think needs a little bit more explanation. How is she an independent person? You specify Tom and Jay, and you actually go into more detail with those two characters than you do with Jordan, so make sure you do focus on her and how she represents the patriarchal system in which she lives. The reader becomes omniscient to her personality. Rephrase that. You can't necessarily become omniscient to something. Nick Carraway, Fitzgerald's narrator, described Jordan as this clean, hard, limited person. The use of the term scepticism shows Jordan Baker's repulsion and lack of trust. Her limitation comes within her refusal to open emotionally to people. Good. I would do a bit more language analysis with that quote. Cold, hard, limited. Those words are quite masculine words. They aren't feminine. You wouldn't describe a small girl as clean or hard. You describe something very clinical as those things, and they are quite masculine in themselves. In that way, she is subverting perhaps the patriarchal system in which she lives, and you could go into more detail there. To elaborate on Jordan Baker's apostrophe again, almost rebellion against interaction and affection with and towards others, Fitzgerald makes her purposely limited, and not even Nick Carraway could weave out of her some insight about her background. Jordan, like Nick, are the main solitary characters within the novel. Rephrase, Jordan and Nick, or Jordan, comma, like Nick, is one of the main solitary characters, either one of those. Yet Jordan being cold seems to repel Nick repeatedly, overpowering Nick. What do you mean overpowering? Perhaps explain in more detail. Fitzgerald clearly portrays Baker with some insecurities, but her layer of scorn and cynicism breaks the conventions of the patriarchy surrounding her. Make sure you proofread your work to make sure it makes sense. It does roughly, but you need to rephrase cynical to cynicism and patriarch to patriarchy. A patriarch is just a man who is in power. A patriarchy is a whole system where men are superior to women. Not only Nick, but all males in the novel can never seem to overpower M, not N, purely from their perception of her not being feminine and timid. You could perhaps contrast at some point, I don't know if you do, her with Daisy and how she is a very clean, hard, masculine person and Daisy isn't and is the complete opposite. I don't know if you go on to do that. Male characters, apostrophe, because the perception belongs to the main characters of Jordan Baker is completely opposite to that of Daisy. You do here then contrast with Daisy, which is good. As a single athlete, Jordan shies away from a typical gender role, being the epitome of 1920s woman. She could easily have been characterised as a lesbian due to her detachment from men. That's a little bit tenuous. I'm not sure she necessarily could have been. Have you come across another author which has thought that, or have you found that on the internet somewhere? If you have, then cite it and perhaps go into more detail. But just because she is an athlete and masculine doesn't necessarily make her a lesbian. I get what you mean in that a stereotypical view of a lesbian might fit with those characteristics, but that isn't necessarily what you're saying here. So be wary of that and be a little bit more clear. Scott Fitzgerald makes it clear that the note his full name is F. Scott Fitzgerald. Either call him that or just Fitzgerald. Scott's his middle name. Makes it clear that the character of Jordan Baker is both a feminist and a firm believer of equality, and this would not be a strange belief, as the 20s were the time of the suffragettes. More than just the suffragettes, it was about hemlines on skirts getting shorter, women having more freedom themselves. It wasn't just the suffragettes which epitomised that. The name Jordan is recognised as being a typically masculine name. Good. Being a golfer but an overall sportswoman, she breaks the conventions of physically gifted people being just men. Very good, interesting thought. Yet she juxtaposes that through her masculinity. More importantly, at a time where everything positive is ruled by wealth, she has independence through her own financial stability. Good, something which Daisy, for example, doesn't have. Tom Buchanan, being a discriminatory yet powerful male, disagrees with the level of independence she has, saying of her family they oughtn't to let her run around the country this way. Brilliant. He's demonstrating this patriarchal system here that we are on about. She's representative of the flapper culture in Gatsby. You're right there. She is kind of the closest to a flapper that exists in this novel. None of the other women quite fit in there. Maybe Myrtle, but certainly she does fit in. Fitzgerald promotes her independence and self-centred lifestyle, which is apparent to the reader, is told that she has had numerous affairs in the past and goes on to have an affair while with Nick. The absence of remorse asserts her dominance and reflects how she exactly sees the world, emotionless, which further explains her poor retention of a serious relationship. Good. Jordan Baker appears to be the only central character without a clear backstory. The location of her mum and dad, more formal to write parents there, or mother and father, are completely anomalous to the reader, but also her uncle, not even knowing as to why she lives with just her aunt. Perhaps include a quotation here. There is a specific quotation in the novel, and if you use Control-F function on a PDF, it wouldn't be too difficult to find. Analysing Jordan Baker's apostrophe personality, because the personality belongs to Jordan Baker. Thus, her masculinity and tough skin has came and developed from the absence of a father figure in her life. That's quite an assertion to make. Is that your interpretation? In which case, you should say her masculinity and tough skin may have come and developed from the absence of a father figure, but it's a bit difficult to say so boldly that it definitely has. Fitzgerald yet again implicating the shock of her father from Jordan Baker's apostrophe character as to why she isn't like other females in the novel, like Daisy or Myrtle. Good. Presentation of Baker throughout the novel is that she is the loop with things going on, but never really wants to intervene. Her character's apostrophe peripheral similarity to that of Nick Carraway. The secondary character she becomes emphasised is her flapper personality. Not knowing where her history lies and who she really is seems to symbolise her clutch to her own personal integrity and independence, the sign that she doesn't really care for anyone but herself, including men. Remember, link it back to the essay title and the patriarchal system, and one of the things that she doesn't really care for is men. She is quite flippant at the end of the novel when her and Nick end their possible relationship, when they just put the phone down after a 3 or 4 minute conversation where they don't really say a lot. Apostrophe with Baker's again. Imbalances within the novel. Patriarchy through all female characters was purposely different. Daisy and Myrtle, the more tyrannical dominated females. Jordan Baker is F. Scott Fitzgerald's symbolic representation of the Western female within the Jazz Age, or the Roaring Twenties in his words. Good conclusion there. Certainly within the word count and up to where you should be. Overall, really impressive, Jules. Well done.